Okay, so today we're going to do a prac using cloudy ammonia. We need 7 mils, so we're going to pour in 7 mils. Whoa! Look, it's turned pink. Oh, hold on. I've got too much. I've got 9 mils. That's all right. I'll just tip some back out. It's turned pink. What? That was clear before. Now it's pink. No, it was always pink. Don't worry about that. Okay, so we know that's not right. We do not want to contaminate all of our chemicals. This is phenolphthalein, and it turns pink in the presence of the base. So we're just doing it for this purpose. Okay, so what we would do is we've got a clean cloudy ammonia. The idea is that we would drop it in. If we have to tip a lot in, I still do take the lid off, but I just do it till I get close. Then I use my dropper just for the last bit. Now I've got 1 drop at a time. 7 mils, perfect. It's clean. Let's say, for example, you did tip too much in to start with. Now, as we know, if we put that back, it's going to contaminate our container. So we're not going to tip it back in here. Our excess, we're going to put in a waste beaker so it can be disposed of properly. Then we get our dropper out and then top it back up to the mark. 7 mils, perfect. Clean container, we didn't contaminate it this time. All our contaminated waste is in a waste container and we can get rid of that the proper way, usually giving it to the lab tech. The other thing you can do is, if you've got too much, is use a pipette and just suck up some, and then you can just drop. Use the pipette to drop in as much as you need. And the excess goes in there, okay? Often if I'm filling a measuring cylinder from a bottle and I only really need a small amount, I will actually use a beaker to do it. So I can fill up from my beaker, and then when I get close, I just use a dropping pipette to do the last little bit. 7 mils. And then I just discard this little bit. I don't tip it back into my container, otherwise I can contaminate the whole lot. I'm just going to show you what not to do first. I see this quite a lot, and so a lot of the time people will just tip heaps in. Okay, let's say we want 10 grams. Oh, I've gone over. So let's tip it back. So same sort of thing. If our beaker was dirty, then we're just going to contaminate our whole chemical. All right, clean beaker. We're going to keep adding a little bit more and a little bit more. Often I will just tap. When I get really close, I'll get some in a spatula and I'll just tap, 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 tap until I get right on the mark. Okay, I've gone over, so obviously I don't need any more. So I'm going to put my lid on my container, go into the container. So I've got too much, get rid of this part, get a little bit out of there, tap, and we've got exactly 10. All right. So that's how we do it. We don't put anything back into our container because we don't want to contaminate the whole sample. When we do have our sample open, we open it and either keep the lid in our hand so that we make sure that we put it back on and it doesn't get contaminated, or I put it upside down on the bench so the top of the container is touching the bench, the inside of the container is kept clean. Use my thing. As soon as I've got as much out as I need, I put the lid back on so that no contaminants can fall back into my container. Okay, these are my copper samples. So that's what my copper should look like. This is what most of my copper does look like. These are obviously contaminated and some of them badly contaminated. So these are samples that I've actually got out of classrooms. I always keep hold of my contaminated samples just so that I can show students and teachers what happens when you contaminate things. Everyone thinks that copper is safe to touch, which it is safe to touch, but you're actually contaminating the sample. And this has purely just been contaminated by fingers. People putting their hands in there, pulling out the samples instead of using tweezers. This is my magnesium. And as you can see, it's nice and shiny. That's how it goes when it comes into the classroom. Sometimes it comes out wet and ends up all corroded and powdery, as you can see these. Alright, so you can see those have been contaminated. Often people think that because they're metal, obviously they don't need to use proper lab techniques, but things get contaminated and it's worthwhile using good techniques. That way you saving money and your experiments work better because often you can't see contamination. Okay, so you use your tools. You can weigh, use your spoons, make sure you have a clean spoon for each different chemical that you're going to weigh out so that you're not cross-contaminating. Don't use your tweezers for your metals and other, litmus paper and that sort of thing. That way the oils on your hands are not going to contaminate your chemicals. Use your droppers to add those last little bits so that you're not tipping in and out. Spatulas. Remember, you can do the tap, tap, tap. Small spatulas, if you only need a little amount, don't use a big spatula, use a small one. Big spatulas and your waste picker. So make sure that if you overfill something, I know that it feels like waste to be throwing it out, but really if you're contaminating a whole jar of something, that's where the waste comes in. You're better off just adding small amounts and small amounts. If you've overfilled, close that jar and then just pull out the rest, throw away the little bit that you don't need. All right? Thank you. Bye.